So here is our multimedia demo. What we're going to do is adjust the screen to get rid of all of this stuff that you're familiar with, the top, and all of this stuff down here that you're familiar with. So let's just get rid of that, and what we have left here, let's focus on it. So one of the things that's kind of interesting about this demo is it's actually going to grab what it needs off the internet, which it means we don't have any local files stored to represent the video or the audio here that you're going to see. So take a look at the line where we define our media. Media equals new media, and we have a media URL. Okay, so something scrolled off the screen that we do need to have a peek at. It's right here. Private static final string media URL. So here's where it's defined. It's defined to be equal to this URL. So this is the publisher of your textbook. So we have http://cs.armstrong.edu/leung/common/sample.mp4. So this is a resource on the internet that we're going to be using in this particular demo. So now that we know that, let's scroll that back off the screen and focus on the rest of the code. We define a media player that we call media player, and we define a media view that we call media view, and we put the media player as the argument to the media view. And then we're going to make some buttons to control it. We're going to have to make some listeners to change the state of the media player when we click on these buttons. So we're going to make ourselves a play button. It's a button. We call it play button. It's a new button, and it has this symbol greater than to try and capture the idea about an arrow that points to the right and somehow means forward. So every time that button is clicked, we have a set action associated with it. So in other words, we're listening for changes in that button. We use the lambda notation here, and we have basically code which has an if statement. So this is the response to the event. We check the text value of the button to see if it's equal to the forward symbol. If it is, we set the media player to play, to the play state, and we change the text to a symbol that's supposed to represent the idea of pausing, 2 vertical bars. Otherwise, we assume that it must be set for pause, and that the pause has been then clicked, in which case we change the state of the media player to paused by saying media player.pause, and we make the symbol on the button change back to the forward symbol. So in other words, if the symbol on the key on the button says this and you click on it, that means play. If it says this and you click on it, that means pause. And whatever of those two things happened, the symbol will switch to the opposite symbol. So it's a toggle button effectively. There's also a rewind button that I didn't mention earlier, but basically that allows us to go back to the beginning of the media. And we do that by seeking duration.0, which means the beginning of the media. So when this button is clicked, when our rewind button is clicked, which has this pair of less than signs on it as the symbol for rewind, and we aren't going to change that like we did up here. See, with the other button we changed what was shown on the button to toggle between forward and pause, but this is not going to change. It's always going to have that pair of less than signs sitting on it, but each time we click on it, that's going to be an event that needs to be responded to, and we will capture it by saying rewind button dot set on action, some lambda notation in here, and what we do is set media player dot seek duration 0. In other words, that rewinds the media. On to the slider. Well, you already know how sliders work. We've had a couple of examples of scroll bars and sliders, so you're familiar with what's going on here. We define ourselves as a slider then, and what we're going to do is set the minimum and maximum values of the slider, and we're going to then assign that directly to the volume property by using the bind command. So here we don't need to generate a listener. It's kind of implicit in the fact that we've bound together the value property of our slider with the volume property of the media player. Now the volume property is expecting a number between 0 and 1. So how do we deal with that? Well, we simply divide the number coming from our slider by 100 to scale it appropriately. So the 30 to 50 is actually going to be 0.3 to 0.5. We then make ourselves a horizontal box that we're going to drop our buttons into. We set the alignment to center, and we add all the buttons as children to our horizontal box. And we also include in there a label, a volume label for our volume slider. So we have then the play button, the rewind button, the volume label, and finally the slider itself, the volume slider. We create ourselves a border pane, and we put the media view in the center of it and our H box containing all of our controls in the bottom section. And that is it. So let's give that a shot and see what happens. So here we go. Okay, so I couldn't talk while I was doing that because I wanted you to hear what was happening as I changed the volume on the slider while with the piano playing. That completes our demo then.